Hello and welcome to the third episode of Colonel Ep.3's Miniature Issues. Continuing with the tower I began in the last episode, you can see that the doors are now in place, the staircase is in place, and I've slimmed down the battlements that were too chunky. I'd used the same template as for the walls where they're much thicker, and it just didn't look right in proportion to the tower. Now it's time to concentrate on the roof and the windows, the stonework, and finally the painting. Got a piece of 1mm balsa wood here, and with my HB pencil I'm drawing floorboards. Eyeballing them really, but trying to get about 2mm wide. Having drawn the main lengths, I then break them up into individual boards, just again eyeballing. Remembering to make a mark on each alternate strip so that the floorboards appear to overlap. Once this is done, check for size against the tower. Decide it's a little bit too big. Slice a bit off the side, and then of course discover now it's too small. A good coating of PVA. Stick the finished floor in. Take the strip I sliced off earlier and carefully put it into place. There's my trusty pointy stick. I'm pressing it down with the flat edge of a knife. There we go. Looks like I meant to do it that way after all. Just check the floor's okay with a little barbarian, and then on to the next part. Here I'm cutting more of those difficult arches that I showed you in the last episode. These are even smaller than the ones I did for the doors, so they're quite fiddly to cut out. But they don't have to be perfect. Again, I don't want this city to look too pristine. They're very fiddly little things, and I have very fat fingers. I've drawn a series of windows on paper. Firstly, this enables me to make several at a time, getting them all more or less the same. It also meant I was able to photocopy the paper and I don't have to draw them all again next time. I'm going to have a lot of these windows to build throughout this project. So just like the doors, I'm lining up the 3 curved stones at the top, and then I'll continue with the rest of the stonework. The holes I've cut in the towers for the windows are rectangular simply because it's easier to do that. And these arches are calculated to cover the rectangles. This is a 3mm wide strip of card. Again, eyeballing the size of the individual stones. These windows will all follow a similar theme. Underneath the 3 arch stones will be a couple of longer stones, and underneath those will be some smaller stones, all finished off with a slimmer, longer windowsill. It's a very simplified design really, but it achieves what I want it to achieve. They look like arched stone windows. As you can see, I've done quite a few windows by this point. My apologies for the blurred close-up here. I'm cutting out all of the paper around the card, leaving only the shape of the window. Having the paper backing on the windows means that they bond properly to the tower, and there's no awkward gaps to show the rectangular hole behind them. Cutting all of the paper from the middle of the window as well. And there they are. They don't look perfect at this stage, but that's okay. The painting process will deal with a lot of that. I've drawn the stonework again with a pencil, just like I did with the walls. And here I'm about to do the wood finish. So the balsa has had a grey undercoat, and now it gets a coat of undiluted brown ink. I get through a lot of this ink. Once the ink is dry, it will be highlighted with a couple of shades of lighter brown, and then washed again with brown ink. This is a process you'll see a lot of in this project, so I'm not going into it too much right here. You'll see the worst of the gaps have been filled with sand, just as I did on the wall. And now I'm giving it a dark grey base coat. Being very generous with the paint here. Just like PVA glue, acrylic paint shrinks as it dries, so you can afford to be quite generous. Once the dark grey is dry, the light grey goes on top. Brushing down the steps and across the stones, I'm trying to catch the top edges, not get into all of the cracks. It's had light grey and white, just like I did with the walls, and now here's the black wash. Again, 1 part ink, 16 parts water. I worked out that formula simply because the dropper I use holds exactly 16 drops of water. Being careful around the door, I don't want to get black on the woodwork. The rest of it I can be very generous on. You can also see the plain patches where I left the paper on the foam board. That's where it's going to glue to the other parts of the model, the walls and so on. Now while the black ink is still wet, undiluted green followed by undiluted yellow. Here I'm concentrating on areas where it's obvious that there are separate parts of the model joined together, and all of the areas where there's quite a lot of sand. This will come out looking like a nice moss. I'm getting quite carried away here. Undercrag City is intended to look old. Not necessarily unpleasant, but it's been around for a long time. Things are a bit worn out. There we go, the yellow finishes off the green and really brightens things up. Having the yellow, the green and the black wet all at the same time gives lots of different tones and makes it look quite interesting. You'll have to take my word for it, as it seems I can't hold it in front of the camera properly. At this point, I realised that I'd forgotten to put a trapdoor in the roof, so no one could actually reach the roof of the tower. I also had about 15 minutes left before I needed to get ready for work, so I rushed it. This would end up bugging me for quite a while, until eventually I took the plunge, cut a hole in the roof of the tower, and put a proper trapdoor in. Now I'm doing the hinges and door plates for the doors. This is just a blob of PVA on top of which I'm gluing tiny pieces of black card. I'm using black because it means I don't have to paint it, simple as that. I'll be able to give it a quick highlight of silver and then some rust-coloured ink, and it's done. It's a very, very quick process. Which is a good job because I'm making a hash of putting the hinges on in the first place. Moving them round until I'm happy with where they're sitting. A slightly larger piece of black card for the door plate. Even the tiniest blob of PVA for this kind of work can be a little bit too large. Moving on to the rest of the doors, and remembering to think logically about the way that they would open. They should swing in towards the corner. There we go. Everything in place, painted. And there it is, glued in between the first two walls. Bit of filler there that I'll need to fix up later. All in all, a pretty solid looking guard tower. Once again, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.